Okay, quiet please. This section is graphs of functions. So a lot of it has to do with graphs. Not quite everything, but most of it has to do with graphs. And I've copied most of the graphs into here, so we're just looking at the same thing. All right. The first example is about domain and range, mostly about domain and range. Okay. We don't have an equation for what makes this graph right here. We just have the graph to look at. Okay. When you have that, if you have to determine the domain from looking at the graph, remember, domain means x values. So you want to know what's the set of all the x values that are represented by that graph. Okay, so the graph starts here, right? And in the x direction, it goes from here to here. So what's the least x value that you see? On the x-axis, right? Domain is always the x. So we're looking at -1, right? And then what's the greatest x value in that interval? So again, the domain is giving you an interval on the x-axis. So it starts here and it ends here. It goes from -1 to 4. So we will say domain, I'll do it with the book notation, which is like this, -1 to 4. Right, that's the domain. Yeah, Jake.
Would you not have the little equation of less than?
You could. The book is almost, I'm sure the book shows that. But if you did instead -1 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 4, that's fine.
Do you take that on
I'll take anything, sure. But the book probably is going to show you that. Okay, in the same way, let's jump over to the letter C. Let's do the range. The range should be all the y values that you see on this graph, right? So let's see. Just project over from the graph over to the y-axis. It starts here and it ends here. Those are all the y coordinates that you should see on that. So what's the least of those? Yeah, they gave us the point. So it starts at -5 and it ends at 4. Remember, you're looking for the y value. -5 to 4. So we would say that the range, again, is -5, 4. Okay. Now, how do we find the value of the function? Well, you don't have anything to plug into, right? But what you have is a graph. Like, how do I find f of -1? I go to x equals -1, and then I follow it down to the graph, and then I read the y coordinate off there, which they actually already told us, right? At x equals -1, what is the value of the function? -5.
So would you write the point or just
-5? It's just referring to the y coordinate. Again, if you do the f of 2, right, that means go over to x equals 2, and then follow it up to the graph, and then follow it back over to the y-axis. What is the value? It's 4. Right, so we ought to be able to read a graph like that. That's probably not so new. That what? F of -1. F of, guys need to knock it off, right? Right. I don't care who it is. I'm getting annoyed. Okay, f of -1. If x is -1, then you go down to the graph and then follow over to the y-axis. That's the value of the function. Right. If f is 2, f of 2 means x equals 2. So go over to x is 2, up to the graph, over to the y-axis. That's the value of the function.